Well, thank you for joining us. Well, we say this morning. For you, it's more afternoon, evening. Dr. Knizia, we really appreciate it. We're going to kind of launch right in. I'm going to start by telling you some things you already know about yourself, right? You've designed over 700 games, some of which are some of the more highly regarded in the industry. I thought of it this way. If there's such a thing as a game designer mountaintop, surely you've reached it. So my question is, I'm hearing more announcements of more new games. I just played Mille Fiori, new release over here. What keeps your creative fire burning at this point in your career?
Well, it is the same as always. It's a love for the games. And it's our big motto is bringing enjoyment to the people. So it's not making money. It's not building your ego. It is really having the calling and the pleasure of being able to produce something which brings a lot of enjoyment to a lot of people. That's the greatest reward, essentially, you can get. And so the fascination for the games is still there. And of course, time moves on. Games are a mirror of the time. So I'm continuously forced, and I force myself to reinvent myself because I can't rest on the laurels of the 90s, yes?
Yeah, and you've been doing a lot of reinventing, whether it's Zuvadis or we did a review of your Criminal Caper series with Bitewing Games, and at least a couple of those were games before, and you're not only getting to reinvent yourself, but even redo some games. I was looking on BGG at their weight statistic. I wanted to look up what is Dr. Knizia's heaviest game according to the Board Game Geek weight. Do you happen to know off the top of your head?
No, I don't.
Okay. It's Tigris and Euphrates. And we found that funny because we actually debated a couple friends on whether or not Tigris and Euphrates is truly a complex game. And what the argument ended up turning into was, well, we just meant there's a low rules overhead. And as I thought of more of your designs, that's pretty consistent. The complexity is in what decision will I make, but teaching your games tends to be a breeze, especially compared with maybe some other modern designs. My question was, is that idea of a low rules overhead, is that kind of an intentional philosophy of yours or more of a coincidence of your design style?
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised that it is Tigris and Euphrates, or Euphrates and Tigris. I would have guessed that, but you never know.
Sure.
Tigris and Euphrates is one of the games I'm very proud of because for actually some years it was the top #1 ranked game on the Board Game Geek, but that was in the 90s, early 2000s, I guess. But now back to your real question. The fascinating thing in our industry is that we have so many different colorful birds who come from many different corners and experiences, and we're all kind of brought together, apart from a few people from Procter & Gamble who do brand management. We're all brought together by the love for the products and what we play. We love the products, and that means these people, because of their different backgrounds, will approach designing in very many different ways, and that means we get a very rich variety of products, which is fantastic. Yeah. So I am more a scientist. I'm a mathematician, I'm a physicist, and I love to reduce rules and complex situations to some principles and to some, some rulings which intuitively make sense from your role of the theme, and therefore you don't have to fight with the rules and the administration. I mean, fight is a kind of a value statement, but with the administration of all the different rules and all the different pieces, I want to keep that as easy and light as possible. So I want to lay out a platform with the game so that the players themselves can bring themselves into the game, and different players will make a different game because it really opens up the stage for them to engage through these relatively simple but not simplistic deep rules, but with a reasonably short rules book. Saying this about Tigris and Euphrates is of course a bit of an understatement because the rules are usually 16 pages with all the conflicts and so on in there. But nevertheless, I hope that they make a lot of sense, and it's a lot of examples in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of what I hear you saying and answering both of the questions so far is just the common thread of the love of games, and the more that you can rather reduce the game down to something that more people can enjoy, the better.
Yes, I mean, Einstein once said, a thing is perfect not if you cannot add anything more, but if you cannot take anything more away from it. Yes. So this reduction and simplification is my style. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I mean, there are the two. I'm probably on the one extreme to try to reduce redundancies into principle as much as I can. There are the other side of people who are the storytellers. I'm not saying I'm not telling stories through my games, but the storytelling and the very detailed, every little tile, every little card has the details, tells the story as such, which is much more to take in, which is a different type of approach to the game. And people have different preferences. Absolutely. So that's not quite my style.
Sure. Well, while we're on the topic of the design process, we recently did a written interview on BGG with another designer, Ryan Opp. We got a chance to play his little card game, Reflections in the Looking Glass. They sent us a review copy. Rodney actually did this written interview with him, and one of the quotes from his interview was, where is it here? I'm very skeptical of first designs being any good. So, for starters, what would you have to say to that quote? What would your retort be? And then following that, in the beginning, if you can remember your first game that you ever designed, was it something that became published, or was it just a passion project? And can you tell us a little bit about it?
The first statement of critical about the first design being good, I don't know. I mean, there are people who write a piece of fiction and as a first, and it is very good. It depends on the genre, and it depends on how much experience you need, and you can be lucky, yes. But usually there is also the saying that you need to put in 5,000, 10,000 hours in order to become a master. It doesn't mean that a non-master or a novice can't find some great masterpiece. I mean, there are people in mathematics who were very young and made wonderful statements and wonderful theorems. So Einstein with 2 pages on his doctoral thesis, E equals m times c squared, everybody knows it. So you cannot make a general principle out of this. But of course, experience helps. And coming back to your question, I have designed games almost as long as I can think, because I grew up in a small town. There weren't many games available. That was pre-internet time. So when I felt enthusiastic about a theme, car racing, whatever it was, when I saw a movie that inspired me, I wanted to play it. So I designed my own games. These games needed a lot of goodwill. So that means there were castles and rivers and bridges, and you moved. So when you were willing to move forward and engage with the game worked. When you just sat in your castle and said, "Oh, come on," then it didn't work. So with this respect, it's a learning process. These games were never published, should never be published, because they were kind of little exercises to try things out. We enjoyed them for mere playing. And over time, I got more experienced, and I understood much more that a game needs to be very robust. So that means it doesn't help if you say, it's the best game my grandmaster and I have ever played, we love it, and nobody really cares about it if they open the game and they don't like it. So I pack my entertainment into boxes, and people open the box, I'm not there, and then the entertainment needs to work. And that means that work needs to go into the box before the game gets published. Yes.
Sure.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Of course, putting in that 10,000 hours, like you mentioned in the beginning. So continuing with questions about the design process, I'm sure you get asked all the time about what you're designing currently. We're also curious about what you get to play. So another 2-part question here. First is, do you ever play your own designs outside of the playtesting process?
The answer is usually no. I mean, there are some promotional activities where I play with fans on the fairs and so on, then I will play them. And there are frequent occasions that I play designs which have been published a while ago, if we do some republication or if we do expansions, if we work on the brand, on the family. And then, of course, I would play them because you need to get the feel and you see what is already there, what's the core of it. And so if you want to extend the brand with another type of genre game, then it is important to have that feel again. But the reality is that my favorite games are always the ones I'm designing, and I have the curse of the new ideas. I have too many ideas. I'm not short of ideas, but you know, the idea is a little starting point, and you need good starting points and innovative starting points. Yes, so that's not trivial, but the real work and the intensive design and development process comes afterwards. That takes a lot of time, that takes a lot of playtesting, that's the core of game design in my eyes. And so whenever there is the opportunity that I can grab some victims, we will play the new designs, and there is never time to play the old ones. I haven't played Tigers and Euphrates for quite a while. Even so, of course, we did Yellow and Yangtze, so that, of course, is a sister game. And I think there is a good general idea in that game. I mean, when I look back, and now I'm deviating a bit, when I look back, there are some general principles in some of the games which I might not even have realized when I initially developed the game. So Tigers and Euphrates with this, I can have my leaders in different kingdoms or in different areas, and it's not mine, but we are all having an interest, but kind of a different interest. And that is a fundamental principle where you actually get a high engagement of different people, high interaction of different people on the same board, everybody different, but everybody somewhat mixed together. Yes.
Yeah.
Or another example is when you look at Ra. Ra is just being published as well in a wonderful, nice...
Yes, this guy is very well aware of that.
Yes, my deluxe copy is in the mail.
And you see, Ra is an auction game, but it's not just an auction for value, because you're bidding with these suns, and there are very few suns in the game, and so every time you make a bid for the pieces to build your civilization, you also get a sun. That is the sun of the last bid. And of course, that means you're not only getting value with respect to building, but you're also influencing the power of your future bidding. And I think that is a nice involvement of the game, where essentially the loop closes from the back. It makes the game, even so, with a very simple principle. Yes, so you bid with the sun, you put it in the center, the next one who wins the bid gets this sun, puts his son in, and so, or her son in. And so it's easily said, but the consequences are very deep. And that comes back to what we discussed. Simple principles, but links them together so that people really understand the game. Simple, but very difficult to master, as the saying goes.
I want to tell you that the first few times I played Ra and loved it, we didn't actually realize that you would conduct an auction if no tiles were available. So we would just kind of like pass. And it was when we got that part right that you can invoke Ra with nothing but the chip there. And the first time a friend of mine did that, it was kind of like our minds were like, oh, there's a whole new decision tree here. And it was a very clever move that he pulled off at that time. And we were like, again, you can teach Ra in 5 minutes reasonably, but you can explore it for a really long time.
Yeah, the way that we sort of synthesized that first question was reasonable and simple rules and complex decisions all throughout. So I guess kind of to follow up the previous question about designs, how often do you get to play games just for fun? Maybe games that aren't your own designs, that you're not play testing, maybe a fellow designer's game or a game you've never heard of. How often do you get to do that?
I need to split the question. I always play for fun. I never feel tortured playing, and it doesn't matter if I win or lose, but it is almost exclusively playing new unpublished designs where we want to move them forward. I have my probably well-known 50 drawers in the meantime. In every drawer there is a game in development. During pandemic, when we had to stop testing for a while, I ran out of space and I secretly bought another 50 drawers. And so now 100 drawers, and at the moment I have only got 2 or 3 empty drawers. So that shows you how much is in there. And whenever I go to a fair and somebody has done a nice game, which is my style of game, I say, oh, these people steal my ideas before I have them. I need to work harder and I need to get these things going. Sometimes you have the unfortunate situation that there's a parallel development and it's in my drawers here, but it isn't finished, and then something comes out and you say, well, what can I do? It's no point in saying, it was in my drawers or I have done it independently. It doesn't help. So that's another kind of moment where I say, get these drawers done, get these out, move them on, get the ones which are most promising, because you can't work on 100 games at a time, of course not.
Sure.
But it's always those which are developing nicely, which are really engaging, which are really fun to play, always fun to play. They will come on the table until they're finished.
Well, you actually touched on our next question, and I would follow that up and say, can you recall any specific example, we're going to say, where you saw another designer's game and said, that's pretty clever. I wish, not envy is too strong of a word, but maybe, oh man, I like that. I wish that was in my drawer, or it is in my drawer.
I think I wouldn't mind having invented That's Very Clever, this game. Because there's one fundamental principle of you roll the dice, you can choose any die, but all the smaller values die off. And that is brilliant, because it means you want to have the high results, but the higher you go, the less opportunities have for later. Yep. That is, again, a nice linking together. Okay, I can take the low values, but if I always take the low values, I have all the options for later, but if I never use them, then where do I get? And if I use the options too quickly, then I run out. And I think that's a nice principle. So it's more the principle rather than the implementation of the game.
Sure, it almost becomes a new mechanism where, like, how could I put that into other games? Just that idea of now, someone at Dice Tower made the joke that Mille Fiori is, what do they call it? Rein so clever. Just the idea of the different areas of the board scoring differently, and of course getting that I get a new action to chain and having different chaining things. But specifically, I want a bigger dice, but that's going to limit me in the future. Is that's really clever.
Oh, wow, there it is, full circle. So last question for our main questions here, and we'll have a little bit of a lightning round, some fast questions after. But last one for this section is, what's something that you're passionate about outside of board games, maybe a hobby? You mentioned you're a mathematician and a physicist. What's something that you get to spend your time doing that isn't board game related?
Yeah. I mean, my life is centered around the games, and so I'm coming back to your question. But just to explain, games does not mean I sit there in front of the PC all day and think about things, close my eyes and develop or play. It is a lot of interaction with publishers to understand the trends. If I say I don't play many games, of course I look at games, and the playtesters bring sometimes games, so I do play some of the fundamental new things to see what's going on. I have a lot of conversations with the decision makers in the companies to see where they want to strategically go. Now, after the pandemic, we can travel more easily. The enjoyment of meeting people from different cultures, all being brought together with the games. The games is an enormous door opener. So it is a rich world in which you can live just by itself. Yes, but I'm still interested in sciences, but I don't do that much anymore in sciences, and I've also given up, so now I'm telling you what I'm no longer doing. I've given up doing teaching assignments. I did that about learning techniques, management techniques, project management, and of course about game design. But it's time consuming, and so it ties your free available unplanned time down. So what do? I still like to read. I like reading science fictions, but I'm running out of the good new ideas. They repeat themselves. So come on, guys, when you write science fictions, write something new. I like to spend time in nature. Even though I live in the center of Munich, we have the English garden here. You can get into green things relatively quickly. That refreshes the mind. And I do quite follow the business. I mean, I was managing a big company in the mortgage business in England for quite a while, and I was working on the banking side. I was working in computer sciences before I became a full-time designer. And I am following business developments of the different companies, of the different industries quite closely. That really interests me. It's a never-ending story of successes and dramas. So,
yeah, of course. I think any game designer would hope that their passions or their projects or their time spent outside of board game design would actually inspire other designs and kind of create that full circle loop so that you spend time in game design, spend time outside of it, and yet they're all still interconnected with each other. All right. So we're going to start this lightning round.
Yeah. And just to finish up, it'd be a minute or two. We're going to take all the nuance out of questions and just give you an either or. So we'll give you two things. They're unrelated, each different question, but the two pairings, we're going to have you tell us what you prefer. And you take it where it's almost a little bit free association. Take it wherever your mind goes. So you want to do the first one?
Yeah. We've got 4 of them here. So first one, if you had to choose in your own design, would you rather have...
Maybe not own design.
Maybe not own design. Okay. Would you rather have in-game points or end-game points?
In-game points. I don't like long scoring orgies at the end.
All right.
With a notepad? Yeah.
Yes.
How about this? This is strange, I grant you, but referring to the actual boxes that the games come in, do you have a preference between square boxes or rectangle boxes?
Intuitively, square boxes.
All right. This one is got some hidden layers here.
No context.
Do you prefer classic art or modern art?
So you have 2 children, and which one is your favorite? And I can only say yes or no. So maybe I say yes.
There you go. All right. Well,
so
then
you see, the point here is classic art just was released by Simon Games. And are you asking about the games or asking about... I was thinking of the games because we just released classic arts by Simon, and of course we have the long tradition of the modern art, different releases. So then you ask me between the 2 children. If you, of course, ask me for the real life classic art or modern art, then I think it is classic art.
All right. Well, that was the best answer we could have hoped for.
We waited till the last 1% of this interview to spring this on you, but we are actually both therapists by trade, so that question was left open-ended to see where your mind would go. We don't have a diagnosis or anything.
Very interesting. And the next thing is a Rorschach test, yes? So you show me
That's right. What is this ink blot? Well, if this one is a little more probably your 2 children, so let's see what you say is our last one. Auction mechanism or area control mechanism?
Very clearly auction mechanism, but auctions have gone out of favor a bit. They were very in the 90s, in the 2000s, and people have industry, the taste of the players, of the multipliers, of those who shout loudly. That's not necessarily the right market. They have moved to there's deck building, there is legacy games, there are other types of games, and I think these are much more in favor these days, and auction games are not so much, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Publishers saying, auction games might not do so well, so they don't publish them. If you don't publish them, they cannot do well. But I think, there are big books. I've just been reading a book about auction theory. There are big books about auction theories where you can do all sorts of different things, first player, first bidder pays the price of the second bidder, so you get a very fair one. There are these strange things where you auction a $10 note, but the two highest bidder needs to pay. So you bid $8 because you think, well, it's absolutely fine. I make a $2 profit. The next one bids $9. You say, well, I can't stop now because I would pay $8 for nothing. So you bid 10. The next one bids 11. The next one bids 12. So you bid $12 for $10, and you get hooked and locked into a mad bidding process because you have to pay even if you lose. So just as examples, there are, and this gets quite mathematical partially. So there is a lot that can still be done, and once auction games have come back into favor, I will certainly read these books more intensively and see how we can make these insights more playful.
We personally, as big fans of high society, modern art, Ra, etc., if there's any drawers over there with an auction in it, by all means, we hope you open them up. We'll be excited. But Dr. Knizia, we're just incredibly grateful for your time, for your insights, and for the fact that you bought 50 more drawers and are going to keep bringing that joy, because it really has to a lot of people. So we thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. It is and it was an honor.
Oh, we're honored. Just the same. Thank you.
Take care.